Yeah, welcome to part 3. Now we're going to talk about spurious emissions from amateur radio stations. So far I've never seen this in an exam. I'm not sure why. I would have thought that it's something important to put in an exam. Spurious emissions are emissions that you're not, you might be transmitting on 14 megahertz, an amateur band, 14 megahertz is an amateur band, and you might be putting out some radiation on 14.5 or the second harmonic 28 megahertz and so on. There are standards for that, and they used to be published in this document we've been looking at. I'll go back to it. There it is. And for some reason they've removed what the actual emissions are. Now, I reiterate, you do not have to worry about this for exam purposes. All you need to know, you don't need to worry about the mathematics and the figures and so on, but you really should know that there are limits to spurious emissions from amateur stations. And in previous versions of this document, those emissions were put in here, but now this document just refers you to an International Telecommunications Union document, which means you've got to go off and find out what they are. Well, even though you don't need to know it for the exam, I'm just going to find them for you and stick them on the screen. Okay, here they are. So it's a bit fuzzy because I did a copy and paste from another document. Now, you do not have to know these, but you do need to know that there are limits to spurious emissions from amateur stations. Amateur services operating below 30 megahertz, including those using SSB, emissions outside where you're transmitting should be no greater than 43 plus 10 log of the PEP or 50 dB, whichever is less stringent. So that's the level of the energy that can be leaving your transmitter on the frequency that you're not transmitting on. And notice for that's below 30 megahertz. I assume this is above 30 megahertz. All other amateur services, 43 plus 10 log the power, or 70 dBc. dBc means decibels below the carrier. Now, I'm not sure where you're at with your theory and whether you understand decibels or not. Doesn't matter right now. The important thing is that you know that there are requirements for spurious emissions from your station. It was once upon a time that wasn't the case. There were actually no limits, and the regulator decided if you had a spurious emission problem or not. But now there are figures. All right, I'll meet you in part 4.